Underneath, we want to drain the coolant out. There's no drain on the radiator, so underneath where the lower radiator hose is, you want to put a drain bucket, and we'll use some hose clamp pliers, loosen up the hose clamp. You want to make sure this is also cold. The engine's cold when you do this. You don't want to do this with hot coolant. Loosen that up. And then just grab the hose, try to rock it back and forth a little bit. And be careful not to splash yourself. If you squeeze this hose clamp far, it will lock in place. So just use some different hose clamp pliers, and you can slide that off. It's a little bit easier. And just let the coolant drain out nice and slow. For this job, you do not have to have the fan or the fan shroud off or even the coolant hose off. It's just a lot easier to see what's going on with all that stuff off. You would just need to go straight to taking this belt off right here. Using a belt tensioner tool or even a 3/8 drive ratchet, you want to go over to the tensioner, and there's a spot right here where that goes. Loosen the tension on the tensioner, and then you can take the belt off. Take it off the power steering pulley first. Then you can loosen the tension on the tensioner. Take that tool off. Take the belt off the alternator, off the idler pulley, off the AC compressor, off the water pump, and then off the crank pulley. And slide it out. Take these bolts out, use a 10mm socket. That's it, there's 5 bolts. Grab the water pump and just slide out. You might want a drain bucket underneath in case you lose some fluid. You want to clean up the surface where the water pump gasket goes. Just run a razor blade or a scraper around it and some brake parts cleaner. Just clean it up, make sure it looks good. And take the gasket. I'll take the water pump. Line the gasket up. Get the bolts started. Now torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. Take the belt, we're going to go around the alternator pulley first. Then it's going to go around the idler pulley, around the AC, and up and around the water pump. And if you still have the fan on the vehicle, you're going to have to go around the fan and come down to the crank pulley. And over the tensioner pulley, and then we're just going to hold tension over here. Just double check everything, make sure it's all lined up correctly. That looks good. You take your belt tensioner tool or a ratchet. And just slide it over the power steering pulley. Let off the tensioner and double check, make sure it's around everywhere. That looks good. Oh, down below. Take the clamp, put the clamp over the hose. Get the hose on the radiator. And tighten down the clamp. just snug and just make sure it's not loose. That looks good. Now add your appropriate coolant and level. You want to make sure you put the radiator cap back on, snug it up. Make sure you add fluid over where the reservoir is to the appropriate level. You want to make sure you run the vehicle for about 10 minutes, constantly checking to make sure it's not overheating and looking at the level. You never want to open the radiator cap when it's hot. After it's run about 10 minutes and the engine's warmed, you can shut the vehicle down, let it cool down, and adjust the levels accordingly.